Sydney Kingsford Tower, Swift Tango 292, inbound on the visual runway 34 right. Sydney Kingsford Ground, Etihad 455 Super, request taxi to parking.
Etihad 455 Super, taxi to parking. Etihad 455 Super, cross runway 7.
Taxiing to parking, Etihad 455 Super. Crossing runway 7, Etihad 455 Super.
Swift Tango 292, number 1, runway 34 right, cleared to land.
Number 1, cleared to land, runway 34 right, Swift Tango 292.
Sydney Kingsford Ground, Qantas 333, ready for pushback.
Qantas 333, pushback approved, expect runway 34 right.
Pushback approved, Qantas 333.
Qantas 333, disregard last message. Qantas 333, pushback approved, expect runway 34 left.
Pushback approved, Qantas 333.
Sydney Kingsford Ground, Turkish 2208, ready for pushback.
Turkish 2208, pushback approved, expect runway 34 left.
Pushback approved, Turkish 2208.
Sydney Kingsford Ground, United 50, ready to taxi. Sydney Kingsford Tower, Philippines 143 heavy is 10 nautical miles to the south at 1,800 feet, inbound for landing. United 50, taxi to runway 34 right, contact tower when ready. Taxiing to runway 34 right, United 50. Philippines 143 heavy, number 2, runway 34 right, cleared to land. Sydney Kingsford Tower, Emirates 417, ready for takeoff at runway 34 left, departing north. Number 2, cleared to land, runway 34 right, Philippines 143 heavy. Emirates 417, line up and wait runway 34 left.
Sydney Kingsford Ground, Qantas 333, ready to taxi.
Line up and wait runway 34 left, Emirates 417. Qantas 333, taxi to runway 34 left, contact tower when ready.
Taxiing to runway 34 left, Qantas 333.
New Zealand 9797, when able turn left, contact ground on the taxiway.
Wilco, New Zealand 9797.
Swift Tango 292, when able turn left, contact ground on the taxiway.
Sydney Kingsford Tower, Q-Link 269, inbound on the ILS runway 34 left. Wilco, Swift Tango 292.
Qantas 333, request permission to cross runway 25.
Sydney Kingsford Ground, Swift Tango 292, request taxi to parking.
Q-Link 269, number 1, runway 34 left, cleared to land.
Sydney Kingsford Ground, New Zealand 9797, ready to taxi to runway 34 left with information echo. Sydney Kingsford Ground, Etihad 91, ready for pushback. Number 1, cleared to land, runway 34 left, Q-Link 269.
Qantas 333, cross runway 25.
Crossing runway 25, Qantas 333.
Emirates 417, runway 34 left, cleared for takeoff. Cleared for takeoff, runway 34 left, Emirates 417. New Zealand 9797, taxi to parking. New Zealand 9797, cross runway 7.
Sydney Kingsford Ground, Turkish 2208, ready to taxi to runway 34 left.
Turkish 2208, taxi to runway 34 left, contact tower when ready.
Taxiing to runway 34 left, Turkish 2208.
United 50, cross runway 7. Crossing runway 7, United 50.
Sydney Kingsford Tower, Emirates 417, ready for takeoff at runway 34 right, remaining in the pattern.
Emirates 417, line up and wait runway 34 left.
Line up and wait runway 34 left, Emirates 417. Sydney Kingsford Tower, Mike Foxtrot 508, inbound on the ILS runway 34 right.
Sydney Kingsford Ground, Qantas 91, ready for pushback.
Sydney Kingsford Tower, Qantas 333, ready for takeoff at runway 34 left, departing straight out.
Mike Foxtrot 508, number 2, runway 34 right, cleared to land.
Number 2, cleared to land, runway 34 right, Mike Foxtrot 508.
Sydney Kingsford Tower, North Shuttle 796, inbound on the ILS runway 34 left.
Qantas 91, pushback approved, expect runway 34 left.
Pushback approved, Qantas 91.
Turkish 2208, request permission to cross runway 25.
Emirates 417, runway 34 left, cleared for takeoff, make left traffic.
Cleared for takeoff, runway 34 left, Emirates 417.
Qantas 333, hold short of runway 34 left.
Holding short runway 34 left, Qantas 333.
Turkish 2208, cross runway 7.
Crossing runway 7, Turkish 2208.
Philippines 143 heavy, when able turn left, contact ground on the taxiway. Wilco, Philippines 143 heavy. North Shuttle 796, number 2, runway 34 left, cleared to land.
Number 2, cleared to land, runway 34 left, North Shuttle 796. Sydney Kingsford Tower, New Zealand 9797, ready for takeoff at runway 34 left, remaining in the pattern.
New Zealand 9797, hold short of runway 34 left. Sydney Kingsford Ground, Philippines 143 heavy, request taxi to parking.
Sydney Kingsford Tower, Eric Air 679, inbound on the ILS runway 34 right with information Foxtrot. Holding short runway 34 left, New Zealand 9797.
Philippines 143 heavy, taxi to parking. Philippines 143 heavy, cross runway 7. Crossing runway 7, Philippines 143 heavy. Emirates 417, contact Sydney approach on 128.3. Contacting Sydney approach on 128.3, Emirates 417. Qantas 333, line up and wait runway 34 left.
Line up and wait runway 34 left, Qantas 333.
Q-Link 269, when able turn left and contact ground, please expedite.
Wilco, Q-Link 269.
Qantas 333, runway 34 left, cleared for takeoff.
Cleared for takeoff, runway 34 left, Qantas 333.
Sydney Kingsford Ground, Q-Link 269, request taxi to parking.
Q-Link 269, taxi to parking. Q-Link 269, cross runway 7.
Crossing runway 7, Q-Link 269.
Emirates 417, contact Sydney approach on 128.3.
Sydney Kingsford Tower, Air Portugal 207, inbound on the ILS runway 34 left.
Air Portugal 207, number 2, runway 34 left, cleared to land.
Number 2, cleared to land, runway 34 left, Air Portugal 207. Sydney Kingsford Tower, Eric Air 679, inbound on the ILS runway 34 right with information Foxtrot. Sydney Kingsford Ground, Qantas 91, ready to taxi.
Sydney Kingsford Ground, Mike Foxtrot 508, ready to taxi to runway 34 right.
Qantas 333, request frequency change.
Mike Foxtrot 508, taxi to runway 34 right, contact tower when ready.
Sydney Kingsford Tower, New Zealand 8,280 heavy is 10 nautical miles to the south at 2,000 feet, inbound for landing.
Taxiing to runway 34 right, Mike Foxtrot 508.
Qantas 333, contact Sydney approach on 128.3.
Contacting Sydney approach on 128.3, Qantas 333.
New Zealand 9797, line up and wait runway 34 left. Eric Air 679, number 1, runway 34 right, cleared to land.
Line up and wait runway 34 left, New Zealand 9797. Number 1, cleared to land, runway 34 right, Eric Air 679.
Sydney Kingsford Tower, Turkish 2208, ready for takeoff at runway 34 left, departing east.
Air Portugal 207, is on final runway 34 left. Sydney Kingsford ground, Qantas 91, ready to taxi.
Turkish 2208, hold short of runway 34 left. Qantas 91, taxi to runway 34 left, contact tower when ready. Qantas 91, cross runway 7.
Crossing runway 7, Qantas 91. Sydney Kingsford ground, Nor Shuttle 796, request taxi to parking.
New Zealand 9797, runway 34 left, cleared for takeoff, make left traffic.
Cleared for takeoff, runway 34 left, New Zealand 9797.
Eric Air 679, when able turn left, contact ground on the taxiway. Nor Shuttle 796, taxi to parking. Nor Shuttle 796, cross runway 7.
Crossing runway 7, Nor Shuttle 796.
Air Portugal 207, Roger.
Wilco, Eric Air 679.
New Zealand 8280 heavy, number 2, runway 34 right, cleared to land.
Number 2, cleared to land, runway 34 right, New Zealand 8280 heavy.
Turkish 2208, line up and wait runway 34 left.
Line up and wait runway 34 left, Turkish 2208.
Air Portugal 207, when able turn left, contact ground on the taxiway.
Wilco, Air Portugal 207.
Philippines 143 heavy, request permission to cross runway 7. Qantas 91, give way to aircraft exiting runway 34 left.
Sydney Kingsford Tower, Quebec Foxtrot 578 is 11 nautical miles to the south at 2,600 feet, inbound for landing.
Turkish 2208, runway 34 left, cleared for takeoff.
Give way to aircraft exiting runway 34 left, Qantas 91.
Cleared for takeoff, runway 34 left, Turkish 2208.
Quebec Foxtrot 578, number 2, runway 34 right, cleared to land. Sydney Kingsford Tower, United 50, ready for takeoff at runway 34 right, departing north.
Number 2, cleared to land, runway 34 right, Quebec Foxtrot 578.
Sydney Kingsford ground, Air Portugal 207, request taxi to parking.
United 50, line up and wait runway 34 right. Line up and wait runway 34 right, United 50. Air Portugal 207, taxi to parking. Philippines 143 heavy, request permission to cross runway 7. Air Portugal 207, cross runway 7.
Crossing runway 7, Air Portugal 207.
Philippines 143 heavy, cross runway 7. Crossing runway 7, Philippines 143 heavy. Qantas 91, give way to aircraft on your right.
Give way to aircraft, Qantas 91.
Sydney Kingsford Tower, Mike Foxtrot 508, ready for takeoff at runway 34 right, departing straight out.
New Zealand 8280 heavy, when able turn left, contact ground on the taxiway.
Wilco, New Zealand 8280 heavy.
United 50, runway 34 right, cleared for takeoff. Cleared for takeoff, runway 34 right, United 50. Mike Foxtrot 508, hold short of runway 34 right.
Holding short runway 34 right, Mike Foxtrot 508.
Sydney Kingsford ground, New Zealand 8280 heavy, request taxi to parking.
Quebec Foxtrot 578, is on final runway 34 right.
New Zealand 8280 heavy, taxi to parking. New Zealand 8280 heavy, cross runway 7.
Taxiing to parking, New Zealand 8280 heavy.
Quebec Foxtrot 578, Roger.
Crossing runway 7, New Zealand 8280 heavy. Air Portugal 207, request permission to cross runway 7.
Air Portugal 207, cross runway 7.
Crossing runway 7, Air Portugal 207.
Mike Foxtrot 508, line up and wait runway 34 right.
Line up and wait runway 34 right, Mike Foxtrot 508.
Quebec Foxtrot 578, when able turn left, contact ground on the taxiway. United 50, contact Sydney approach on 128.3.
Sydney Kingsford Tower, Sierra Echo November Alpha Tango Oscar Romeo Super is 14 nautical miles to the south at 3,100 feet, inbound for landing, requesting runway 34 left.
Wilco, Quebec Foxtrot 578.
Contacting Sydney approach on 128.3, United 50. Sierra Echo November Alpha Tango Oscar Romeo Super, number 1, runway 34 left, cleared to land.
Sydney Kingsford Ground, Quebec Foxtrot 578, request taxi to parking.
Number 1, cleared to land, runway 34 left, Sierra Echo November Alpha Tango Oscar Romeo Super.
Quebec Foxtrot 578, taxi to parking.
Taxiing to parking, Quebec Foxtrot 578.
Sydney Kingsford Tower, Qantas 1150 heavy is 10 nautical miles to the south at 1,500 feet, inbound for landing, requesting runway 34 left.
Qantas 1150 heavy, number 1, runway 34 right, cleared to land.
Number 1, cleared to land, runway 34 right, Qantas 1150 heavy.
Mike Foxtrot 508, runway 34 right, cleared for takeoff.
Cleared for takeoff, runway 34 right, Mike Foxtrot 508.
Sydney Kingsford Ground, Jetstar 507, ready for pushback. Thank you, good day, Air Portugal 207.
Quebec Foxtrot 578, cross runway 7.
Crossing runway 7, Quebec Foxtrot 578.
Jetstar 507, pushback approved, expect runway 34 right.
Pushback approved, Jetstar 507. Sydney Kingsford Tower, Qantas 91, ready for takeoff at runway 34 left, departing west.
Qantas 91, runway 34 left, cleared for immediate takeoff.
Cleared for takeoff, runway 34 left, Qantas 91.
Mike Foxtrot 508, contact Sydney approach on 128.3.
Contacting Sydney approach on 128.3, Mike Foxtrot 508.
Qantas 1150 heavy, when able turn left, contact ground on the taxiway.
Wilco, Qantas 1150 heavy.
Qantas 91, contact Sydney approach on 128.3.
Thank you, good day, Qantas 91. Sydney Kingsford Ground, Qantas 1150 heavy, request taxi to parking.
Qantas 1150 heavy, taxi to parking.
Taxiing to parking, Qantas 1150 heavy. Sydney Kingsford Ground, New Zealand 8280 heavy, ready for pushback.
New Zealand 8280 heavy, pushback approved, expect runway 34 right.
Pushback approved, New Zealand 8280 heavy.
Sydney Kingsford ground, Quebec Foxtrot 578, ready for pushback.
Sierra Echo November Alpha Tango Oscar Romeo Super, when able turn left, contact ground on the taxiway.
Wilco, Sierra Echo November Alpha Tango Oscar Romeo Super.
Quebec Foxtrot 578, taxi to runway 34 right, contact tower when ready.
Taxiing to runway 34 right, Quebec Foxtrot 578. Sydney Kingsford ground, Quebec Foxtrot 578, ready for pushback.
Sydney Kingsford ground, Dillman 298, ready for pushback. Sydney Kingsford ground, Jetstar 507, ready to taxi.
Quebec Foxtrot 578, pushback approved, expect runway 34 right. Jetstar 507, taxi to runway 34 right, contact tower when ready.
Pushback approved, Quebec Foxtrot 578.
Dillman 298, pushback approved, expect runway 34 left.
Taxiing to runway 34 right, Jetstar 507. Pushback approved, Dillman 298.
Sydney Kingsford ground, Quebec Foxtrot 578, ready to taxi.
Sydney Kingsford ground, New Zealand 8280 heavy, ready to taxi.
Sydney Kingsford Tower, Alitalia 758, inbound on the ILS runway 34 left.
New Zealand 8280 heavy, taxi to runway 34 right, contact tower when ready.
Taxiing to runway 34 right, Quebec Foxtrot 578.
New Zealand 8280 heavy, taxi to runway 34 right, contact tower when ready.
Taxiing to runway 34 right, New Zealand 8280 heavy.
Alitalia 758, number 1, runway 34 left, cleared to land.
Number 1, cleared to land, runway 34 left, Alitalia 758.
Jetstar 507, cross runway 7.
Crossing runway 7, Jetstar 507.
Quebec Foxtrot 578, request permission to cross runway 7.
Sydney Kingsford ground, Mike Alpha Victor Echo Romeo India Charlie Kilo, ready for pushback.
Quebec Foxtrot 578, cross runway 7.
Crossing runway 7, Quebec Foxtrot 578.
Sydney Kingsford ground, Qantas 6203, ready to taxi to runway 16 right.
Sydney Kingsford ground, Dillman 298, ready to taxi.
Sydney Kingsford ground, Jetstar 5358, ready for pushback with information Foxtrot. Mike Alpha Victor Echo Romeo India Charlie Kilo, pushback approved, expect runway 34 right.
Pushback approved, Mike Alpha Victor Echo Romeo India Charlie Kilo.
Quebec Foxtrot 578, give way to aircraft on your left.
Give way to aircraft, Quebec Foxtrot 578.
Jetstar 5358, pushback approved, expect runway 34 left. Sydney Kingsford Tower, Q-Link 905, inbound on the ILS runway 34 right. Q-Link 905, number 1, runway 34 right, cleared to land.
New Zealand 8280 heavy, request permission to cross runway 7.
New Zealand 8280 heavy, cross runway 7.
Crossing runway 7, New Zealand 8280 heavy.
Sydney Kingsford ground, Qantas 6203, ready to taxi to runway 16 right.
Qantas 6203, taxi to runway 34 right, contact tower when ready.
Taxiing to runway 34 right, Qantas 6203.
Taxiing to runway 34 left, Dillman 298.
Qantas 1150 heavy, pushback approved, expect runway 34 left.
Pushback approved, Qantas 1150 heavy.
Sydney Kingsford ground, Mike Alpha Victor Echo Romeo India Charlie Kilo, ready to taxi.
Mike Alpha Victor Echo Romeo India Charlie Kilo, taxi to runway 34 right, contact tower when ready.
Taxiing to runway 34 right. Mike Alpha Victor Echo Romeo India Charlie Kilo.
Mike Alpha Victor Echo Romeo India Charlie Kilo, cross runway 7.
Crossing runway 7. Mike Alpha Victor Echo Romeo India Charlie Kilo.
Jetstar 507, request permission to cross runway 34 right.
Sydney Kingsford Ground, Jetstar 5358, ready to taxi to runway 34 left with information Foxtrot. Jetstar 507, hold short of runway 34 left.
Hold short of runway 34 left, Jetstar 507.
Jetstar 5358, taxi to runway 34 left, contact tower when ready. Taxiing to runway 34 left, Jetstar 5358. Alitalia 758, when able turn right, contact ground on the taxiway.
Sydney Kingsford Ground, Qantas 1150 Heavy, ready to taxi to runway 34 left.
Wilco, Alitalia 758.
Dillman 298, request permission to cross runway 7.
Sydney Kingsford Ground, Alitalia 758, request taxi to parking.
Jetstar 507, cross runway 34 left.
Crossing runway 34 left, Jetstar 507.
Dillman 298, cross runway 7. Qantas 1150 Heavy, taxi to runway 34 left, contact tower when ready.
Taxiing to runway 34 left, Qantas 1150 Heavy.
Qantas 1150 Heavy, give way to aircraft on your right.
Crossing runway 7, Dillman 298.
Sydney Kingsford Ground. Philippines 221 Heavy. Ready for pushback.
Give way to aircraft, Qantas 1150 Heavy.
Alitalia 758, taxi to parking.
Taxiing to parking, Alitalia 758.
Philippines 221 Heavy, pushback approved, expect runway 34 left. Q-Link 905, when able turn left, contact ground on the taxiway. Jetstar 5358, request permission to cross runway 25. Wilco, Q-Link 905. Jetstar 5358, cross runway 7. Crossing runway 7, Jetstar 5358.
Pushback approved. Philippines 221 Heavy.
Alitalia 758, cross runway 7.
Sydney Kingsford Tower, Quebec Foxtrot 578, ready for takeoff at runway 34 right, departing straight out.
Crossing runway 7, Qantas 1150 Heavy.
Quebec Foxtrot 578, runway 34 right, cleared for takeoff.
Cleared for takeoff, runway 34 right, Quebec Foxtrot 578.
Alitalia 758, request permission to cross runway 7.
Q-Link 905, cross runway 7.
Crossing runway 7, Alitalia 758.
Q-Link 905, taxi to parking. Q-Link 905, cross runway 7. Crossing runway 7, Q-Link 905.
Sydney Kingsford Tower, New Zealand 8280 Heavy, ready for takeoff at runway 34 right, departing east.
New Zealand 8280 Heavy, line up and wait runway 34 right.
Sydney Kingsford Ground. Etihad 455. Ready for pushback.
Line up and wait runway 34 right, New Zealand 8280 Heavy.
Etihad 455, stand by. New Zealand 8280 Heavy, runway 34 right, cleared for takeoff.
Cleared for takeoff, runway 34 right, New Zealand 8280 Heavy.
Jetstar 507, contact Sydney Kingsford Tower on 120.5.
Contacting Sydney Kingsford Tower on 120.5, Jetstar 507.
Sydney Kingsford Tower, Charlie Sierra 1, inbound on the ILS runway 34 left.
Quebec Foxtrot 578, contact Sydney approach on 128.3.
Sydney Kingsford Tower, Jetstar 507, ready for takeoff at runway 34 right, departing straight out.
Contacting Sydney approach on 128.3, Quebec Foxtrot 578.
Sydney Kingsford Ground. Philippines 221 Heavy. Ready to taxi.
Charlie Sierra 1, number 1, runway 34 left, cleared to land.
Sydney Kingsford Ground. Mike Alpha Victor Echo Romeo India Charlie Kilo. Ready to taxi.
Jetstar 507, runway 34 left, cleared for takeoff.
Number 1, cleared to land. runway 34 left, Charlie Sierra 1.
Cleared for takeoff, runway 34 left, Jetstar 507.
Philippines 221 Heavy, taxi to runway 34 left, contact tower when ready. Stand by, Q-Link 905.
Taxiing to runway 34 left, Philippines 221 Heavy.
Sydney Kingsford Tower, New Zealand 8,280 Heavy is 2 nautical miles to the north at 2,400 feet, inbound for landing.
New Zealand 8,280 Heavy, number 1, runway 34 right, cleared to land.
Sydney Kingsford Ground, Turkish 50, ready for pushback.
Sydney Kingsford Tower, Dillman 298, ready for takeoff at runway 34 left, departing straight out.
Sydney Kingsford Ground, Mike Alpha Victor Echo Romeo India Charlie Kilo, ready for pushback.
Number 1, cleared to land, runway 34 right, New Zealand 8,280 Heavy.
Dillman 298, hold short of runway 34 left. Mike Alpha Victor Echo Romeo India Charlie Kilo, pushback approved.
Holding short runway 34 left, Dillman 298.
Etihad 455, pushback approved, expect runway 34 left.
Pushback approved, Etihad 455.
Turkish 50, pushback approved, expect runway 34 right.
Sydney Kingsford Ground, velocity 1471, ready for pushback.
Pushback approved, Turkish 50.
Mike Alpha Victor Echo Romeo India Charlie Kilo, thank you. Velocity 1471, pushback approved, expect runway 34 right.
Pushback approved, velocity 1471.
Sydney Kingsford Ground, Mike Alpha Victor Echo Romeo India Charlie Kilo, ready to taxi. Philippines 221 Heavy, request permission to cross runway 25.
Jetstar 507, contact Sydney approach on 128.3. Philippines 221 Heavy, cross runway 7.
Contacting Sydney approach on 128.3, Jetstar 507.
Crossing runway 7, Philippines 221 Heavy.
Mike Alpha Victor Echo Romeo India Charlie Kilo, taxi to runway 34 right, contact tower when ready. Mike Alpha Victor Echo Romeo India Charlie Kilo, thank you.
Thank you, Mike Alpha Victor Echo Romeo India Charlie Kilo.
Sydney Kingsford Ground, Turkish 50, ready to taxi to runway 25.
Sydney Kingsford Ground, velocity 1471, ready to taxi to runway 34 left.
Velocity 1471, taxi to runway 34 right, contact tower when ready. Turkish 50, taxi to runway 34 right, contact tower when ready.
Taxiing to runway 34 right, velocity 1471.
Taxiing to runway 34 right, Turkish 50.
Dillman 298, line up and wait runway 34 left.
Line up and wait runway 34 left, Dillman 298. Sydney Kingsford Tower, speedbird 77 is 10 nautical miles to the south at 2,900 feet, inbound for landing, requesting runway 34 left.
Charlie Sierra 1, when able turn right, contact ground on the taxiway.
Wilco, Charlie Sierra 1.
Velocity 1471, cross runway 7. Speedbird 77, number 1, runway 34 left, cleared to land.
Number 1, cleared to land, runway 34 left, speedbird 77.
Dillman 298, runway 34 left, cleared for takeoff.
Velocity 1471, request permission to cross runway 25.
Velocity 1471, cross runway 7.
Cleared for takeoff, runway 34 left, Dillman 298.
Sydney Kingsford Ground, Etihad 455, ready to taxi.
Crossing runway 7, velocity 1471.
Sydney Kingsford Ground, Charlie Sierra 1, request taxi to parking.
Charlie Sierra 1, taxi to parking.
Taxiing to parking, Charlie Sierra 1.
Etihad 455, taxi to runway 34 left, contact tower when ready.
Taxiing to runway 34 left, Etihad 455.
Charlie Sierra 1, cross runway 7. Sydney Kingsford Tower, Jetstar 5358, ready for takeoff at runway 34 left, departing west. Charlie Sierra 1, cross runway 7.
Crossing runway 7, Turkish 50.
Charlie Sierra 1, cross runway 7.
Crossing runway 7, Charlie Sierra 1.
Jetstar 5358, runway 34 left, cleared for takeoff. Cleared for takeoff, runway 34 left, Jetstar 5358. Jetstar 5358, runway 34 left, cleared for immediate takeoff. Cleared for takeoff, runway 34 left, Jetstar 5358. Jetstar 976, pushback approved, expect runway 34 left.
Pushback approved, Jetstar 976. Sydney Kingsford Tower, Qantas 1150 Heavy, ready for takeoff at runway 34 left, departing straight out.
Qantas 1150 Heavy, hold short of runway 34 left.
Holding short runway 34 left, Qantas 1150 Heavy.
New Zealand 8280 Heavy, when able turn left, contact ground on the taxiway.
Wilco, New Zealand 8280 Heavy. Sydney Kingsford Ground, New Zealand 8280 Heavy, request taxi to parking.
Thank you. Good day. Mike Alpha Victor Echo Romeo India Charlie Kilo. Sydney Kingsford Ground, Delta 1911, ready for pushback.
Sydney Kingsford Tower, Q-Link 333, inbound on the ILS runway 34 left. New Zealand 8280 Heavy, taxi to parking.
Taxiing to parking, New Zealand 8280 Heavy.
Delta 1911, pushback approved, expect runway 34 left.
Pushback approved, Delta 1911.
Q-Link 333, number 1, runway 34 left, cleared to land. Number 1, cleared to land, runway 34 left, Q-Link 333. Qantas 1150 Heavy, line up and wait runway 34 left.
Line up and wait runway 34 left, Qantas 1150 Heavy.
Speedbird 77, when able turn left, contact ground on the taxiway.
Wilco, Speedbird 77. Sydney Kingsford Ground, Speedbird 77, request taxi to parking.
Speedbird 77, taxi to parking.
Sydney Kingsford Tower, Mike Alpha Victor Echo Romeo India Charlie Kilo, ready for takeoff at runway 34 right, departing straight out.
Mike Alpha Victor Echo Romeo India Charlie Kilo, runway 34 right, cleared for takeoff.
Cleared for takeoff, runway 34 right, Mike Alpha Victor Echo Romeo India Charlie Kilo. Sydney Kingsford Tower, Philippines 221 Heavy, ready for takeoff at runway 34 left, departing north.
Qantas 1150 Heavy, runway 34 left, cleared for takeoff.
Cleared for takeoff, runway 34 left, Qantas 1150 Heavy. New Zealand 8280 Heavy, request permission to cross runway 7.
Philippines 221 Heavy, line up and wait runway 34 left.
Line up and wait runway 34 left, Philippines 221 Heavy.
New Zealand 8280 Heavy, cross runway 7.
Crossing runway 7, New Zealand 8280 Heavy.
Sydney Kingsford Ground, Delta 1911, ready to taxi.
Delta 1911, taxi to runway 34 left, contact tower when ready. Delta 1911, runway 34 left, cleared for takeoff.
Cleared for takeoff. Runway 34 left, Delta 1911.
Jetstar 976, contact Sydney approach on 128.3.
Sydney Kingsford Tower, Mike Bravo Juliet November, ready for takeoff at runway 34 left, departing south.
Mike Bravo Juliet November, hold short of runway 34 left.
Contacting Sydney approach on 128.3, Jetstar 976. Holding short runway 34 left, Mike Bravo Juliet November.
Delta 1911, contact Sydney approach on 128.3.
Sydney Kingsford ground, Philippines 211 heavy, ready for pushback with information Alpha. Contacting Sydney approach on 128.3.
Mike Bravo Juliet November, runway 34 left, cleared for takeoff.
Cleared for takeoff, runway 34 left, Mike Bravo Juliet November. Sydney Kingsford Tower, YSSY 999 is 9 nautical miles to the south at 2,500 feet, inbound for landing, requesting runway 34 right. Sydney Kingsford Tower, Corina 1141, ready for takeoff at runway 34 left, departing west.
Korean Air 1141, line up and wait runway 34 left.
Line up and wait runway 34 left, Corina 1141.
Euro Swiss 999, number 1, runway 34 right, cleared to land.
Number 1, cleared to land, runway 34 right, YSSY 999.
Papa Romeo 090, taxi to parking. Papa Romeo 090, cross runway 7.
Crossing runway 7, Papa Romeo 090.
Jetstar 2, contact Sydney approach on 128.3. Mike Bravo Juliet November, contact Sydney approach on 128.3.
Contacting Sydney approach on 128.3, Jetstar 2.
Korean Air 1141.